Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Instant Payments Podcast. I'm your host, Tal Clark. I'm the CEO of Instant Financial, a fintech company that's modernizing payments and payroll for hourly workers and their employers. I've worked in the payments industry for 30 years, and I'm glad you're tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please do us a favor and subscribe, leave a review, or suggest a future guest. This podcast features payments and payroll leaders to discuss some of their challenges and what technologies they've used to improve their workplace and lives of their workforce. Today's guest has spent his career helping some of the world's largest restaurant brands navigate transformation. Marcus Wasdin is founder and principal of the Wasdin Company. He currently advises restaurant operators and private equity firms on digital strategy and AI adoption. Most recently, he served as Chief Revenue Officer of PAR Technology, where he launched Coach AI, one of the restaurant industry's first customer-facing AI products, which expanded to more than 1,000 restaurant locations within months. Before that, Marcus held leadership roles at Inspire Brands, overseeing technology and operations across more than 32,000 restaurant locations, as well as CIO positions with Church's Chicken and the Atlanta Hawks. Marcus has spent his career helping restaurant operators use tech to solve real business problems. Marcus, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Tal, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, glad you're here and excited to talk to you. You and I've known each other for a while and spent some good times together. So it's great to talk about that and talk about some of the things you've done. So look, man, you have helped organizations overall just with innovation and better reach to their customers and their clients and
Mm.
everything else. So I look forward to talking about that. But give me, in your words, a little bit more in your background, a little more detail. I know you spent some time with the Hawks. Start there and bring us up to date a little bit.
Yeah, of course. And again, thanks for having me, Tal. It's a pleasure, and I appreciate your friendship over the years as well. Hey, I kind of stumbled into the restaurant and hospitality space earlier in my career. One of my mentors ended up going to Church's Chicken as part of a private equity group that had acquired them back in the day. And he called me up and said, "Hey, we need some help over here. Can you come help us out?" And I'm like, I don't know anything about restaurants other than I like to eat at them, right? And so I had no idea how complex those businesses were. And I jumped into it. And as I dug in more and more, it seems like a pretty simple business on the outside, but once you get inside, it is incredibly complex to deliver a product and turn a profit. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
really, really tough, right? And the margins are razor thin, and the margin for error is razor thin. So the people that figure it out and have great success, more power to them, man. It's an amazing accomplishment. Um, but that's where I got bit by the bug, and so kind of left there and stayed at hospitality, but went to the Atlanta Hawks, and as a CIO, was actually the first CIO of the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay.
Back then, the Atlanta Hawks were only the third team in the NBA to have a CIO. And they needed that role because they were undergoing a $200 million renovation of the arena and had to rip and replace all that technology. So the first 18 months was an incredible journey doing that while we were playing a basketball season in a broken, arena that
Yeah.
was, a challenge. But when we got it all, Humpty put back together again, we ended up with the number one guest experience in the NBA and the number one in-arena technology in the NBA for the next several seasons based on guest feedback. And,
Right.
it was pretty amazing. It was a lot of fun. 'Cause that's kind of one lens, right? Like from the operator side, like I've had that kind of inside the business, trying to drive things, get outcomes, have great guest experience, and all that kind of fun stuff. And then I kind of flipped to a different lens for the next chapter in the career, which was going to work for one of the larger restaurant technology companies and owning a business line there, including the P&L and driving a business there, more specifically back office, right? So it's the first stuff I learned when I got to Churches around labor and scheduling and food cost and forecasting sales and all that kind of fun stuff. And that's why the stuff that you guys do is near and dear to my heart because, kind of spent a lot of time in that part of the business. Did that for a number of years and really enjoyed that. So that was kind of lens number two. And then what I would say is, lens number three is doing some of the advisory work that I'm doing now, being the guy that's kind of, a little bit of an outsider's perspective, to the people that are part of a particular transaction right now. And trying to give them some insights on what I see as working well, what's not working well. So that's the third lens or the third chapter of the career. So,
Well,
love it. And it's in my blood. It's in my family too. For people that don't know, my wife is in the industry too. I would say that she's probably one of the world's foremost experts on payroll, HRIS, back office systems in restaurants, and was a very early adopter in earned wage access herself, right?
She
So
was, yeah. Well, and shout out to Christy, right? She has been, and Christy and I have known each other. I think I met Christy before I met you, maybe.
you
I'm not
did way before me.
sure. Yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah.
we'll have to get her on here in the next couple of months as well, because I know she's got some neat things going on also.
So literally in the family, you know.
Yeah, it's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Well, look, I mean, and that's kind of where you and I have intersected around the technology. I've always been in the businesses focusing technology on people with earned wage
Mhm.
access. And as you mentioned, Christy was an early adopter of that. She was an early adopter of payroll cards back in
Mhm.
2003 or four or five, somewhere in there, right? So she's always
Mhm.
been at the forefront. And I know you've been right there as well in some different areas of technology. So what are you seeing right now just in the restaurant leadership? You go to restaurant leadership conference, you go to these other conferences, and it's all been about technology. And I think
Mhm.
there is a struggle, I believe, in how do we adopt the newest technology while also protecting what little margins we have. And you're familiar with that. So what are you hearing right now in the restaurant space in regards to technology? What are people calling you and asking you about?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So, what I would say is, yeah, we're inevitably going to mention this word, and it's an overused word or acronym, but AI, right? Is a lot of
Yeah.
the stuff that you're seeing out there. And I want to start the conversation with, I'm a massive believer in AI and think it's going to do wonderful things, but the rest of the conversation is going to be about, ooh, we're not quite there yet, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So, back to your question, what I would say is, I think AI, one of the things that I'm seeing at these conferences I'm hearing about is that AI is enabling lots of people to jump very quickly and rapidly into the restaurant tech business. So, no longer do you have to go and find, if you have an idea, no longer do you have to go find the massive developers and find data centers and all that kind of fun stuff. You could spin your idea into an actual product right now. Typically, you have to get some folks to really harden it and do the architecture correctly and all that kind of fun stuff. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that you could just generate stuff with AI. There's a whole lot of work behind it. But it has, I think, lowered the barrier and made teams way more efficient in order to deploy products pretty quickly. And
Okay.
the reason I bring that up is that now what I'm seeing is there's a ton of fragmented solutions out in the marketplace. There's a little bitty product that fixes this little bitty problem I have in the restaurant. Now, the problem I have in the restaurant's a real problem and I need it fixed, right? But
Yeah.
I don't need to deal with 22 different systems as a restaurant general manager to fix 22 separate and distinct challenges. So I think that's
Right.
one of the things that's happening out there is like all these new solutions are coming up and they're wonderful. But I think that's something that restaurant operators and leaders are dealing with right now. It's just this fragmentation of all of the solutions, right? So that's thing
Yeah.
number one. The second thing I was saying is I got an NRA when I was kind of cruising around there, and specifically in the tech area, it's all over the place, dude.
Some of it gets kind of annoying. I went to been to a pitch session actually in Atlanta where companies had just finished their Series A and they were making presentations for some of these things. And there was 6 of them presenting, I think. 5
Mhm.
of the 6, it was all AI. And the one that wasn't was actually a breath of fresh air. I'm like, "Okay, I'm interested in this dude," right?
Yeah. I mean,
But
it's yeah, what I'm seeing, right there, and even like older established companies are slapping AI on the tail end of their name, like it was all the branding and the booths and all of that kind of fun stuff. And I really believe that providers in the restaurant tech space, and probably providers everywhere, but I'm super familiar with the restaurant tech space, are in this tug of war where on one side, most of the operators I talk to are kind of sick about hearing about AI for AI's
yeah.
sake, right? Like, don't talk to me about AI. Talk to me about the solutions that you provide. Talk to me
Mhm.
about how you make things bigger, better, faster, cheaper.
Mhm.
What value are you delivering? And if you happen to do that with AI and it makes it cheaper, bigger, better, faster, that's awesome. But lead
Yeah.
with what are you fixing, right? Now, on the other side of that tug of war for these particular providers are the investors. So you mentioned Series A and other things. That's all most investors want to hear about is AI because that's where they want to
Mhm.
put their money. And so the providers are in a tough spot, in my opinion, right now because they're trying to speak one language to their customers, which is here's the value we deliver, while also weaving in the AI message to keep the investors happy. So
Yeah.
I think it's a tough spot right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, there is certainly some AI fatigue, and that's everywhere, but I guess because it is just so prevalent right now, and that's where the money's going. So where do you think the operators still struggle with technology? So pulling back a little bit from AI, like what problems are you seeing that they're trying to solve right now from an operator perspective?
Yeah, it's usually, help me with food, labor, and running my restaurant better, right? I'm sure there's fatigue around hearing that, but man, it's one of the businesses that you guys are in, which is how do I make life better for the folks that work in my restaurant?
Yep.
How do I retain talent? How do I attract talent? And I think that's one of the things that you guys were super early on, which was how do we provide this benefit that makes the employee or the team member experience better?
Yeah.
And how do we provide something that I'm a big believer. I heard a long time ago, if you've got grumpy employees, right, like that grumpiness usually rubs off on the guest, and that's never a good thing. You need to have some happy employees. So,
Mhm.
I think they're still trying to solve the same problems that they've always been trying to solve. It's just that the screws keep getting turned a little tighter and a little tighter and a little tighter on those particular problems.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then the other piece is, I think restaurants are struggling a little bit, on the front, the top line part, just driving transactions and getting people into the restaurants. I think that's a big challenge too. Um, the check average has been ticking up and up and up and up as people try to cover these costs and maintain their margins and things like that. But you can only drive check average up, so much before people stop coming.
Yeah.
And so trying to find that delicate line of how do I get the traffic numbers up because people are really discerning in this, kind of environment. There's a lot of health conscious stuff going on out there. There's a lot of talk about, a lot of folks on GLP-1s and how's that
Yeah.
impacting
That's
QSRs and all
crazy.
that kind of fun stuff. So
Yep.
I think driving traffic and making moments memorable and having that great guest experience and making people want to come back over and over again is the top line problem. And then the back of the house problems are still kind of the same. They just keep getting harder and harder to deal with, which is, food and labor costs.
Yeah. Well, that's huge. A couple of things there I want to follow up on, and this is a tough question that I often ask myself, but I'm going to ask you because you probably
Sure.
can help me explain it. Is that, and in our business, so we are providing solutions, instant pay and instant tips that help resolve the labor problem. We know that 83% of the people working in this space are paycheck to paycheck, and they need access to their money. And so many times, Marcus, we know that we have a restaurant that is interested. They think it's critical change that they want to make. And you've been on that side of it.
Mhm.
So it's just maybe how does instant breakthrough? They're going from one HCM solution to the next. And inevitably, it ends up tougher and longer than they expected. And I'm not sure they're gaining any value by making those changes, whereas they could push value to their employees by doing some of the things we offer, which they ultimately do, but it just takes a while to get there. Why does that happen? Why do we see the turnover in the point of sale technologies, turnover in HCM technologies in these restaurants?
I gotta tell you, I think the POS guys and the HCM folks and the back office folks and the loyalty folks, like all those people, I think it's a very easy thing to point to and try to build a business case around. Now, I'm not saying that those business cases always materialize, right?
Yep.
Like, but it's pretty easy to kind of say, hey, look, the POS is the heartbeat of your restaurant. If you have a 20 or 30-year-old point of sale that's fragile to integrate with and that kind of fun stuff, there's probably a pretty good business case for you to go and replace the point of sale because it's really the nerve center. Every single transaction goes across that point of sale. That's open heart surgery, man, on a restaurant. Like when you're
Yeah.
changing the POS, it is disrupting everything. And so you got to take those decisions very, very seriously. So I think when you have, as you and I know, turnover is not only pretty high in the restaurants, but it's relatively high in the leadership of restaurants. And so when somebody new comes in, they evaluate what's going on and then they get hooked on, hey, there's a business case that if we change this HCM or back office or POS or whatever, it should be able to drive some incremental return for us. Now, I'll give you a case where in my previous life, and I won't mention the particular company I was at the time, we would way down the road on a POS, evaluation. And because mainly the franchisees had gotten very frustrated with the existing provider, which that's not a new
Yeah.
story, right?
Yeah.
Um, Everybody loves to hate on POS providers, whether it's their
Yeah.
fault or not. But we got down to the point where we were almost ready to sign the dotted line and we reevaluated how much this was going to cost and how much time and disruption it was going to cause. And we stepped back and said, what are we getting for this? So am I going to be able to recoup this return in a year, 2 years, 5 years? And the answer was no. Like, I'm not going to be able to, like, the solution we have is modern enough. It's good enough. Let's focus on other things. So back to your original question, which is, unfortunately, I think those bigger systems are easier to point at and say, hey, there should be some sort of return. I think, for instance, like, one of the things that you've got to find the leaders that understand attracting the best talent and retaining the best talent is what we're here to do. And earned wage access is one of those things that has become table stakes for you to do that. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think for you guys, as you look at, talking to execs about what's going on and what they're trying to accomplish, you got to somehow break through to the people leaders or the people in those organizations that care about the folks and the team members that are attracting them, and kind of get their attention. But I don't have a silver bullet for you, buddy. I just think those other systems are easy to point at. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no doubt. And yeah, so it's about our people. And that's one of the things we just completed the underserved report that we did with our mutual friend, Jason Dorsey, in the Center for Generational Kinetics. And Jason did a great job on that for us. And it shows us the data points that there is pain amongst the employees in the restaurant space, quick service or table service, either one, right? And there are options for accessing money, and sometimes just not even having access to money without paying a fortune to get it is just challenging. And those are the things we're trying to solve. And sometimes I'm like shaking my head about, let's get it. We got to get it done. And we're having a great run and it's a great time, but you always want to do more. So let's go back to AI just a little bit. It seems to be everywhere. What's from your perspective, what's real and simply hype around AI, especially for the restaurant industry?
I think it's mostly hype right now. So it's funny. I got a couple examples for you. I think what's real in some of the advisory work that I'm doing now, there's a lot of technology and services firms coming out of the woodwork trying to get kind of my attention and some of the other principals in this deal's attention. And, I had one guy call and say, hey, we're the foremost leading firm for restaurant tech. We've done more AI than any other firm we would assert, blah, blah, blah. And so we ended up taking their call, right? And this was earlier this week. And, when we got on the phone and they went through that spiel and talked about all their AI credentials and chops, I said, hey, give me an example where you have deployed something that is AI powered that has delivered an outcome for a business, right? What has it done? What value has it delivered? His first response was, well, our internal developers use AI to make themselves more efficient with development. And I'm like, okay, I got you. So you're using Claude Code or you're using Cursor or you're using whatever. I get it. And there's value in that. I don't want to discount that, right? If you're becoming more efficient, could turn things faster and cheaper, that's great. And that's going to make an impact to me as a client. But that's you internally, right? What have you deployed that's AI enabled that is making a difference, right? And like, it was crickets, dude. Like, there was nothing. Okay.
Right.
And so I give you that example to say a lot of it's hype. Now, there's a lot of potential, right? So one of the things that I happen to sit on the advisory board of a quick serve voice AI company that is, trying to figure out how do they take these high repetitive tasks that are usually pretty draining on people, right? If you're just sitting there, like, I don't know how many people out there watch people in a drive-through with a headset on, dude. Like, that is a tough job, man. Like, it is really, really tough. And so if you can take that type of burden off of someone so that they can actually focus with the guest and interacting and making sure things are happening, I think that's a big thing. And so the challenge, that's such a good use case in that space. The biggest challenge in that space, though, is that the cost of goods of delivering that service are higher than the restaurants are willing to pay and allow that provider to get some sort of margin to be in business, right? So,
Wow.
I mean, you're talking, it's really expensive to deliver voice AI at the drive-through, somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 just for the cost of goods, Tal. And economics from a tech perspective, like when I was at Inspire and Arby's, their entire tech stack cost $1,000, a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And so until once they figure out how to compress those cost of goods, they can charge something that's meaningful, then I think it'll take off, right? Like, I think the potential's there. So I think that's one. I think the other one, again, back when I was at PAR and we launched Coach AI, it was a tool that allowed natural language questions and queries for the data that already existed. So think about like my base back at Church's Chicken, they got 2 deliveries a week. It'd be great as a manager for me to just be able to ask something, do I have enough chicken to last me till the next delivery, right?
Yeah.
In order to get that data, you had to look at 2 or 3 different reports, right? And it took you
Yep.
maybe 10 or 15 minutes and you're off the floor for that time and whatever. So we deployed that and it was great, but it didn't get the adoption that I expected it to in the restaurant. Above restaurant, it got massive adoption. You
Okay.
could ask it really cool stuff. Like if you're an operator that had 8 restaurants you're operating, you
Yep.
could say, analyze my sales and my open and closing hours and make a recommendation as to whether or not I should change my operating hours, right, to
Yep.
maximize profitability. And they like would come back with a recommendation on that, which was pretty cool. In the restaurant, they just didn't have time or savvy to ask it the right questions, right? They're too busy trying to serve customers. So turning that from reactive to proactive. So instead of me saying, do I have enough chicken? It tapping me on the shoulder saying, you're not going to have enough chicken. You need to do something about, right?
Yeah.
So
There you go.
I think those types of solutions, along with, how do I schedule and optimize that? How do I bring all the compliance stuff into play? Because that's a
Yep.
big deal in labor, and all that kind of fun stuff. I think there's a lot of solutions that can provide a lot of value. I just think a lot of people are talking a lot about it today and not really delivering that value yet, but it's coming.
Okay.
We just got to
Okay.
find.
Well, look, we're going to pick this back up in the next episode, Marcus, but this has been a great conversation. There's so much happening in the restaurant industry right now, and your perspective on technology matters now more than ever. We're going to pause here and again pick this up in part 2, where we'll dive deeper into AI adoption trends and what's next for the industry. For our audience, you can find Marcus on LinkedIn. We'll link to his profile in the show notes. You can follow along with new episodes at instant.co/podcast or wherever you get your podcast. Please share the episode and leave a review. Thanks for tuning in to the Instant Payments Podcast.